The Holy Bible, a book inspired and architected by God and written by His people, dating back to the beginning of real human history, from the time of man's true origins. A book that teaches us that the earth is not millions of years old, as we've been brought up to believe. A book teaching us that we did not come from monkeys or apes or primordial soup, but a book that instead shows us our Creator is a loving, merciful, and just God. A God who created a beautiful world in which the entire planet was once a paradise. A paradise that He gave to us to fill up and multiply across. In Genesis, we're shown that God had finished all of creation in 6 literal days, and that indeed everything He had created was very, very good. In the span of 4 days, God was finished with the heavens and the earth. And it was on the 5th day that He began making the sea creatures, both great and small. And on that very same day, He also made all of the exotic flying creatures, which flew through the open firmament of the beautiful heaven. On the 6th day, He made all of the majestic land creatures, which included all of the dinosaurs, along with mankind. He also planted a garden, and in the midst of it, the tree of life. But there was another tree God had also placed in the garden, one that God commanded man not to eat from. Sadly, mankind used their free will to sin against their holy and righteous God. With free will comes consequences, and in this case, the consequences of sin would plunge mankind into darkness.
Before the fall, God saw everything that He had made, and it was very good. Tov ma'od. It was just the way it should have been. It came forth exactly as He intended.
At the end of Genesis 1, it says it was very good. God looked at everything He had made, and it was very good. And we get some idea of how good it was in the last 3 verses when God says that both man and the animals and birds were vegetarian. They didn't eat each other. They ate the plants and the fruit of the plants. That's telling us a lot about how very good the world was.
Creation was in a state of innocence. This affirms a fundamental element of God's character. He is good. God is not the author of evil or death.
God came into the garden. He had fellowship with man, and they could actually communicate with Him and see Him. According to the way we understand the pre-fall condition,
they would have lived forever. God warned him beforehand, if you eat from this, you're going to die. Well, Adam did eat. God told Adam, you're going to die.
God said, from dust you came, and to dust you shall return. So that's physical death. Through one man, sin entered the world, and death through sin. Adam and Eve began to die physically. The fall of man affected the whole creation. The ground was cursed. The whole creation is groaning in bondage to corruption.
Sadly, the reality of the fall is now easily seen wherever we look. In this broken world, we see pervasive death, violence, corruption, lies, hate, and sin.
Man is exiled from the place of God's own presence, and that fellowship is not restored as it was. Man is going to have to labor by the sweat of his brow, and then he will return to the dust from which he was made. That is what has happened to the world. And so it describes entropy, the whole idea that things are subject to decay, dissolution, finally death. The whole world is like this. It has a limited shelf life, so to speak.
It changed the world profoundly. Pretty much everything was corrupted. The human soul, Even the creatures were suddenly carnivorous or poisonous. Diseases and viruses emerged that were otherwise benign. It just radically changed everything. It even changed plants. Plants suddenly became weeds and choked out the crops.
The ground was cursed. Thorns and thistles began to grow. We don't live in the original very good creation. We live in a fallen creation, a cursed creation. The fall was a massive, catastrophic, world-changing event.
So everything was corrupted. It was a tragedy on the highest possible level. Evil had to mature before God unleashed the first judgment.